Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butterbeer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Irvin Capeman.
I'm Karoline Oberländer.
And I'm Sophia Jenkins. Joining us again today, we have Lizzie Ruffing. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thanks for having me back.
It's so nice to have you. We're now here for episode number 87, and we will continue to discuss the 91st chapter of the Harry Potter series, Veritaserum, Goblet of Fire, chapter 35. We will see if we get through in one episode. Irvin is still getting his thoughts together, and if it was up to him, I think we would listen. You would all be listening to a third episode, but we'll try to finish up today.
No promises.
Yes, promises. Yes, promises. Yes. We're gonna finish.
You can't make me stop talking about Barty Crouch Jr.
All right, you're going to start your own. You're going to have your own episode.
It's going to be your Patreon content. If you want to hear Irvin talk more about this chapter with no end, then let us know and he'll do that on Patreon. But we encourage you to read the chapter before listening. If you haven't already, last time you should have, obviously, and to listen to part 1 in the last episode. And if you haven't been able to catch up on the reading last time, I will just repeat what we recommended last episode, which is basically Irvin,
and Sophia.
He has, but mostly Irvin. So you can see he has a lot of thoughts on that. So we have Harry Potter and the Goblet of Sevens by Irvin, The Fallen Fathers of Goblet of Fire by Irvin, The Dumbledore Book by Irvin, whole book, Dumbledore, The Life and Lies, and then, of course, Sophia, The Schemes Behind the Spite, Why Voldemort Really Jinxed the DADA Job by Sophia.
This feels like Gilderoy Lockhart's reading list.
A bit.
Look, I'm not going to say Lockhart isn't one of the characters I relate to most. But anyway, it's not like 7 of my readings to 1 of yours. It's only like 3 to 1. I feel like that's a
that's fair.
Perfectly acceptable ratio. Well, we want to offer a huge thanks to Ryan Post over on our Patreon, who bought us this round of drinks at the pub. So, whoop, thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Listeners, if you'd like to buy us around at the pub, please head on over to patreon.com/3broomsticks with the numeral 3 to sign up. We have lots of great bonus content over there. We've been talking a lot about the HBO series trailer and our reactions to the various content about the TV show coming out. And not to mention, Carolina and Ev are reading fanfic, which is great fun over there.
Yes, thank you.
And you know, we'd really appreciate your help in keeping the lights on at the Three Broomsticks so we can talk about Goblet of Fire Chapter 35 for a long time to come.
No.
That's not going to be successful at getting us more Patreon.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Don't think that's going to happen.
You know, I bet there's like one person out there who's like, yes, please take $20 a month and keep podcasting about this chapter.
Well, if you're out there,
exists, yes, then please let us know, and we will give you podcasts every month about this chapter for $20 a month.
Yes, or we'll just give you Irvin's phone number, and y'all can chat for hours on end.
Yeah, actually, that sounds better.
Makes more
Let's
sense.
do that.
Yeah. But Irvin, remind us, what did we talk about last episode?
You know, a little of this, a little of that, a little of everything. Dumbledore may have come up once or twice, as, you know, he tends to with this panel.
Sometimes, yeah.
But actually, we do have a follow-up on last episode, because we were talking about how long, like, Voldemort's whole resurrection spectacular took time-wise.
Yes.
Because, like, reading it, it's long and intense, but, like, you know, timing-wise, is it hours? Is it minutes? How long would it take for Voldemort to actually get through his whole monologue and song and dance? And because, you know, we are nothing if not diligent in conducting research here. I believe Sophia actually went and found out how long it would all take. Sophia, what are your findings?
Yes. And it's funny, just before we were starting this, we were talking about how we spent like the first half hour of last episode talking about the first like paragraph of this chapter, and we're still not done. So we're back. First paragraph. Okay. Yeah, my findings was, okay, so I read it's mainly dialogue. I read the dialogue at a leisurely pace because I feel like Voldemort is he is milking it. He's milking it, and I tried to give some space for the action. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly how long the action takes, but most of it is dialogue.
Well, I have two questions.
Yes.
First of all, did you actually perform the action? Did you pretend to torture someone and figure how long that would take? Did you try to bully a 14-year-old? How diligent were you?
Okay, I didn't have many, willing or unwilling subjects available. So,
okay, fair.
We're gonna say it was just in my imagination.
Okay, and second question, did you do dramatic pauses? Did you let the silence spiral horribly?
Oh, yes. I let the silence spiral horribly. Yes. And yes. So, it could, I'm not saying this is 100% accurate because I wasn't, standing there with a stopwatch when this was actually happening. But I'm guessing it's, within 5 minutes in either direction. Probably even less, within a few minutes in either direction. Okay, so the finale of all of this is that it took 26 minutes. That's what I found.
Wow.
That's a long time. Yeah.
That's not that long a time.
It was longer than I expected. As in, when I'm reading the book, I sort of am like, oh my god, he's there for an hour or whatever. But when you think about the fact that, okay, dialogue, when you read it versus when you speak, it's different. I was like, it's probably only 20 minutes. So I was actually surprised that it was a bit longer than that. I was thinking 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, see, and I was thinking it would be closer to an hour just because in my experience, I read faster than I talk. I've had this issue where, I, was doing, a reading from my book or something, and I was like, oh, it's 4 pages. I'll, breeze through it in 10 minutes. And then it's oh, crap, this is, a half-hour thing.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so I'm not surprised, dialogue, especially when you, pause for reactions and everything, and you're not just, blazing through it, it takes longer than I always think it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, sorry. When I said that, I was not being really accurate. Of course, you read faster than you talk. That totally makes sense. What I meant was more that, when you're in the scene, you kind of, it feels like the scene is, everything. If the scene is a lifetime. Because you're so, hanging on to every word. You're, you imagine it having taken a while. But the thing is, the amount of space that the words take up versus how long it takes to say them is different. It's more what I meant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It is a really long monologue. I was exhausted by the end. And I was like...
You gotta build up the stamina for villain monologues.
Yeah.
I was parched. I was like, he doesn't have a water bottle with him or anything. He talks solidly with, basically no interruptions for that entire time. For, almost half an hour. He's just talking.
Right. And then also, think about it. He has, slits for noses, so that means no protection from nose hair. That means his throat gets drier so much faster. Does he need cough drops once in a while? Does he have some Ricola with him and just to be able to talk?
Yeah.
Oh, I bet after the whole thing, he was like, oh my god, cough dropius. Just the next couple days.
Seriously. Well, also, if you think about it, the only person he's had to talk to for the last year is Wormtail, and Wormtail does not seem like, a great conversationalist. So, yeah, I can imagine that he's I don't even care that I'm so thirsty. I just came back to life. Like, I must talk. Like, I have been so bored.
Oh.
Do we think that he practiced with Nagini and like used her as his person to talk to instead of Wormtail?
Honestly, probably in Parksapong. But then he has to like translate it into English, so yeah.
That's true.
But no, he does a lot of explaining. It's long. And I'm someone who like gives tours and stuff, is like that's my job. And I'm always like drinking water constantly throughout then. So I'm like, I'm used to talking for long periods of time, but like the idea of just like straight talking, no, like it's just you, no water bottle, no nothing.
Maybe it was just the adrenaline of being reborn and actually having succeeded what he wanted to do.
Lizzie, I gotta tell you, I've like presented at like adrenaline pumping at like launch parties, conventions, and despite the adrenaline, you need water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I definitely think Voldemort like rehearsed this speech. Like it's too good a speech for him to just like come up with it off the cuff.
I think
he's that good. I really do. I think he's just a born speaker and a born leader, and that's why he can just spit out stuff like this.
I think that he has had nothing else to think about for the last time.
Yeah, that's what I
he
think,
was composing this in his head for the last year.
Yeah.
For the last 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah, 13 years. What do I say to Harry Potter when I meet him? Like,
exactly.
You have, like, in Voldemort's position, you would just think about
what
that.
do I tell my Death Eaters? Yeah, totally.
No, I think that makes sense. And he has a new body. Maybe he built in a feature of, like, never get a sore throat in there. We don't know how that works.
Well, he's just not human enough anymore to feel that sort of, maybe he doesn't drink water. We never see Voldemort drink water. Maybe he just doesn't. Who knows?
Yeah.
Do snakes drink water? I don't know.
Yes, they do. But he is not a snake yet, quite there.
I'm just being silly. But going back to our, like, what we were actually talking about last time.
Sorry, 1 second. I need to interrupt. Just want to remind our listeners that you can vote on who gives a better villain monologue. We have that on our website from episode 86, so last episode. So the question is, who gives a better villain monologue? And if you haven't voted, please vote. We have the option of, I can't pick if you're undecided, or Lord Voldemort, or Mad Barty Crouch Eyes. So go back and pick, because I'm very excited to see who is winning that race.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, going back to sort of what we were talking about last time, which is like what was going on while Harry was gone. Like, the truth is that when you're in crisis mode, like 26 minutes, like that's a long time. Like that's actually like a pretty decent chunk of time. So I feel like before we were sort of like, okay, was it like maybe just like 15 minutes? So like by the time, like I feel like there's plenty of time for Snape to find Dumbledore, to talk to Dumbledore, for Karkaroff to escape, for Dumbledore to talk to Mad-Eye Moody. Like there's plenty of time for that, plus like probably at least 10 to 15 minutes of panic. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering, like, what was going through Dumbledore's head during those, like, 10 to 15 minutes of, like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Yeah. See, and, like, my thought when I saw your finding is that actually that's not very much time at all. 'Cause, like, you know, 26 minutes is a lot of time, like, in a vacuum, but, like, assuming there's a bazillion people around, you have to, like, get from, like, A to B to C and, like, you know, like, pull Dumbledore aside in a crowd and tell him what's going on. Like, I think this actually lends a lot of credence to your theory that, like, they weren't aware of what was going on.
Yeah.
Because, like, I always envisioned this as, like, oh, like, Harry's gone for, like, you know, an hour or 2 hours, and everyone is like, oh my god, Harry Potter's missing. But, like, if only 20 minutes have gone by and they can't see into the maze, then, like, I think it's possible that they just, like, were unaware that Harry was in a graveyard.
Yeah, I think
agree.
they were. Like, I think it's not a suspicious time. Like, if he had been gone for an hour, then I imagine, like, all the judges of the Triwizard Tournament are going to be like, wow, this maze is taking a really long time. Like, what is going on here? But, like, okay, you know, it's taking 25 extra minutes, or like they don't know how long it's going to take. Like this seems reasonable for people to be like, yeah, he's still in the maze, he's still like putzing around in there.
Yeah.
But if I'm
wow, he must be bad at mazes.
yeah, like oof, I guess Cedric and Harry are just like real crap at mazes. Like, guess that's just how it
note
works.
to self: Hogwarts curriculum next year should include a maze solving unit.
But I would say, like, from the perspective, like, I think, yes, like, I think it still stands that it makes sense that nobody knew Harry was gone, but I'm just imagining, like, from Dumbledore's perspective of, like, knowing that the dark mark has burned on Snape's arm and not knowing exactly why and what's happening, like, when you're in that kind of crisis mode, like, 26 minutes is going to feel like a lifetime. Like during that 26 minutes, he is going to have gone through like 1,000 different possibilities in his head. Like he's going to be like already trying to figure out what the next steps are. If Voldemort's back, how do we figure out if Voldemort's back? Do I send Snape? Do I send him later? Like, I think he's going to be like going through a real like crisis, but I think the crisis does not involve him thinking that Harry has disappeared because he trusts Mad Eye so much. Yeah. And Mad Eye is like, yep, he's still putzing around. He's really lost. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I also am going to slightly push back. So first of all, Snape's dark mark isn't burning when the 26-minute timer starts.
Yeah, it is.
Like, because Voldemort does.
No. I started it when he pressed the dark mark.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, so I started it when he pressed the dark mark, because that was sort of the question we had, is like, how much time does Snape / Dumbledore, like, I'm saying Snape because we don't know how fast Snape is able to tell Dumbledore, but how much time does Snape know that, like, Voldemort is calling him and Harry hasn't come back yet? That is the amount of time, 26 minutes.
Got it.
Okay, that makes more sense. Because you figure, like, there's at least 5 minutes of monologuing before he calls the Death Eaters, plus time for the resurrection. So then Harry was missing, I'd say, at least 45 minutes.
I would have to look back. I don't, like, it's harder to know how long the resurrection took because it's not dialogue so much. So it's like, okay, how long did each stage, like, was he bubbling in the cauldron? Like, that's harder. But a decent amount of his monologuing to Harry, actually, let me check, because he touches the dark mark, then monologues to Harry for a couple minutes, and then the Death Eaters start arriving. So he touches it, and then there are like a couple minutes before anyone arrives. I'm imagining they are all doing like a "where's my super suit" scene, you know?
Yes.
Like, need to find.
And maybe also check, like, if I were a Death Eater and I managed to not get into prison and suddenly my dark mark was burning, I think I would check with my friends. Like, do we go there? Is it a trap? Like,
yeah. Be like, are you going? Are you going?
Right. Are you going?
Yeah.
Also, do we want to go there, even if it's not a trap?
Yeah. Also, for the record, I have staged the resurrection of Voldemort at a convention. And when I did it, right, yeah, like, no one is surprised. And so when I did it, it took about 5 minutes, but also we had a fairly small stage. So I think, like, if there's more room in the graveyard by the time Pettigrew's going, like, back and forth, I would say the resurrection part takes maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just based on my own experience.
That makes sense.
Right.
And I just checked, and, like, Voldemort actually doesn't say anything to Harry until after he touches Wormtail's dark mark. So he says, like, a tiny bit to Wormtail, where Wormtail's like, "My lord, you promised," and he's like, "Hold out your arm," and he's like, "Your other arm." Like, that is the only thing that happens before he touches the dark mark. So pretty much all of his I would say all of his villain monologuing comes after touching the dark mark. But we don't know exactly how long the resurrection took. So I would say Harry was probably gone like 35 to 40 minutes total.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
Which still isn't, like, insane in the scheme of, like, third task.
Yeah,
people are in the maze, you know. It doesn't seem crazy.
Yeah, it explains why there was so much chaos when they when he came back with Cedric's body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But does also add to like, oh my God, how boring watching this task is. Oh my God, it goes on forever.
Incredibly boring.
Right, because straight up for half an hour, nothing is happening.
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
at one point, they're like, oh no, like, Fleur Delacour is out.
Exactly.
Ooh, like, murmur, murmur, murmur. Like, oh, Victor Crumb is out. Ooh, murmur, murmur, murmur. And then just, like, a straight up, like,
Nothing's
40-minute stretch of nothing.
Like, what do they do? Is there entertainment happening? Is
a band
just the music
playing the same song
and
the
they're
whole
like,
time.
The whole time, right?
Right,
Oh,
like,
God.
are they, like, selling popcorn?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a terrible spectator
And
sport.
then also think about, like, it's students of a certain age. Like, keeping them calm and in their seats would be incredibly hard for so many hours if there's no entertainment going on. I would want to be a teacher there.
Yeah, you'd think there would be some kind of projection magic that they could at least see, like, markers of where they are in the maze.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, the way I see it, like, you can look down into the maze. So the way this should have happened is, like, everyone can see into the maze, like, over the edges and all that. But if that were the case, then everyone would know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, the only reason Voldemort succeeds at this whole plan is because the Ministry of Magic is terrible at creating spectator sports. Like, if they were better at this, Voldemort would not be resurrected.
Yeah, but that's also why it's such an elaborate scheme for Voldemort. Like, I make this case in the Dumbledore book, like, why do we have to get Harry through the whole tournament? It's because, like, the first task is a good spectator sport, and you can't just, like, make Harry disappear while he's battling a dragon. And, well, the second one is a terrible spectator sport, but he also can't really, like, access Harry when he's down in a lake.
Yeah, and the mer people are, like, watching the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, listeners, where else are you going to get half an hour of forensic analysis into how long a monologue took? So, Lizzie, you actually had really good points about Polyjuice Potion that we can dive into as a sort of follow-up to our Polyjuice Potion episode, because apparently we are not done talking about Polyjuice.
Yeah, I had listened to the Polyjuice episode kind of around the time when I was planning for this episode, and this particular scene stood out to me when Barty Crouch was under the Veritaserum and kind of giving his, he was telling Dumbledore, like, what happened to him, how he got out of Azkaban and all of that. And the point that really stood out to me was, because in the Polyjuice episode, they were talking, there was a lot of debate, and I think there's a lot of debate in the chat as well about, like, do you turn back, or do parts of you turn back into its original self while you are under Polyjuice Potions, for example? Like, is pregnancy possible or not? Because does the DNA turn back to its original state and pregnancy isn't possible, or is it? So this, to me, is evidence that it actually could be possible that your appearance doesn't go back to normal based on the quote from the book. So Barty Crouch Jr. says in his confession about his mother, she was buried under my name and bearing my appearance. Everyone believed her to be me. So my interpretation of that is obviously she took the potion before she died, and after she died, the potion, like, maybe the time wasn't up, and the potion locked her into Barty Crouch Jr.'s appearance, and nothing reverted back to how she was. According to Barty Crouch Jr. under the Veritaserum, she was him. And I think there's also evidence where everyone else believed that as well when she was buried, and it didn't fade away. And I wonder if that's because the magic doesn't recognize and can't revert back to the original person because that original person is no longer alive.
Well, but sorry.
No, but the person is alive because the person is Barty Crouch Jr.,
like,
right?
The subject
the mother,
of
I meant
the
like the mother. Like, the original person is the mother.
Oh, yeah.
So,
first of all, fascinating. Like, I never considered this, and frankly, I wish I had thought of this when we were on the Polyjuice episode. But so I did, like, a deep dive into this. Well, into everything in this chapter.
Really?
Yeah. So the evidence that we have, right, is the quote you said, and also that Sirius says in Padfoot Returns, the Dementors buried him outside the fortress. I watched them do it. Mm-hmm. So the idea that, like, if you die, you get stuck in your polyjuice state, I believe that's not the case. I think polyjuice wears off after an hour, like, regardless of whether the drinker is dead or alive. I don't have firm evidence for that. Like, I think your theory is completely plausible. I don't have anything to refute it, but I think you could still say that polyjuice wears off after an hour. So 2 ways you could explain those quotes, right? Either she was buried, like, right after dying, like, within the hour, which, like, could happen. Like, there's no real reason to delay. Like, there's not going to be, like, an open casket or anything. And the Dementors can sense whether you're dead or not, because, like, they sense the presence of a soul. So basically, like, I think, a prisoner dies and the Dementors are like, well, okay, let's go bury them,
Yeah.
Like, we can clear out the cell and all that. I've also thought that it's possible that Barty Crouch Jr. is using a bit of poetic license in this quote. So the Dementors can't see, right? Literally the preceding paragraph, he says that the Dementors are blind. And Barty Crouch Jr. has no way of knowing, like, firsthand whether or not she maintained her appearance when she was buried. Like, he's not in touch with anyone who could confirm or deny that.
Yeah, that's a good point. He wasn't even present for that. So where did he get that information from? Could it have been his father? Could his father have told him later? Maybe? No.
Yeah, but, like, I sort of took it as more like, she drank polyjuice to the bitter end and she was buried without anyone knowing, like, is sort of what I took that to mean. And, like, I don't think we can take Sirius Black's quote as, like, confirmation based on what he saw, because, like, he's inside the fortress, like, watching them bury a body, like, outside the fortress, presumably, like, not in front of his window. And, like, there are Dementors working around a body, like, potentially the body might be covered, or, God, I hope the body would be covered somehow, and they're not just, like, tossing the corpse, into
to be honest,
the
probably
grave.
the Dementors are just tossing the corpse into the grave.
He's probably not. Yeah, Sirius is probably not a reliable narrator with that quote, because, like, he's also in prison and maybe a little bit delusional at that point, so he might not have seen very clearly what was going on.
Right, like, unless his vision is, like, really, like, superhuman vision, I think, like, sort of he's filling in the blanks himself, where he's like, oh, I saw the Dementors burying a body that I knew was Barty Crouch Jr.'s body. Yeah. So he says, oh, I saw them burying him.
Yeah, because he also...
But I don't take that to mean he literally saw, like, who they were burying.
Because he also, like, he knew that he saw Barty Crouch Sr. and his wife coming for this deathbed visit, so he, like, was already thinking, oh, everyone knows Barty Crouch Jr. is going to die, and then there's he sees them burying a dead body, and he's like, guess that's Barty Crouch Jr. So, like, I could totally see it being, like, an assumption rather than, like, he saw it with his own eyes. Yeah. In the same way.
Do we know if they were there? If they stayed until she was dead?
No, they
left.
They left, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that means she would have had to take the potion herself the whole time. But yeah, first of all, I don't think they cover the body, because why would they? There's really no reason to do so for the Dementors. And I don't think they respect the dead. So, like, I don't see a reason. But absolutely, Sirius from afar, it's a nearly dead, or it's a dead person that is probably doesn't look at the best. So you might not be able to distinguish mother or son there. But, like, I don't know. I think, in my opinion, it's still... like your first option, Irvin. I think that they had to have thought about that plan for a long time. And just think about another visitor coming, or someone in the prison actually seeing who was buried. So I think they just knew they would like bury the body relatively quickly after the death. So she just took the potion kind of right before she died, because I think otherwise the plan is way too risky.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then also like the idea of that polyjuice is stuck. I can't imagine that would be happening, because we learn a lot about magic wearing off. But if that would be happening, the implications that would have on murder.
Yes.
You could make your victim drink the potion and then kill them, and no one would be able to find out who was murdered.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself is kind of proof that it isn't that way, because otherwise everyone would be doing that and we would know about that kind of problem. Because that's just the smartest thing to do if you want to kill someone.
That's like true crime stuff.
Yeah.
I still am of the belief that it didn't wear off, because we really can't confirm it. And my only other piece of it that I have is like from a biological standpoint, like your metabolism stops when you die. So the potion is no longer being metabolized by your body. So there's nothing to really stop it from wearing off.
Yeah, that too.
But I guess I see this as like, this is magic. It's not just a biological thing.
It is at the end of the day.
So I don't think that doesn't necessarily convince me. But yeah, I guess I'm of the opinion that it did wear off, and it's just like, why would the Dementors wait to bury a body? It's like, they aren't going to have anyone come pay their respects. They're not going to do any sort of ritual. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to throw it in a grave. To be honest, they probably have some like pre-dug graves just like waiting around. So, yeah.
Do you think they get like individual graves? I would just think there's like a kind of dumping ground.
Yeah.
I would hope they would get individual.
But the thing is, like, then if it's a dumping ground, like, you do want to, like, bury the body underneath things.
Yeah.
So, like, I would say it makes more sense to have individual graves just because you don't know when someone's going to die. Like, a mass grave only makes sense if you're murdering mass groups of people.
Yeah. Also, back to the quote that Lizzie pulled, it says, she was buried under my name. So, like, evidently there are, like,
right.
named and marked graves.
They probably have to report it back to the ministry and say, yeah, he's dead. Here's his grave.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So they probably, like, you know, he said, you know, they always get excited when they sense someone dying. So they're probably, like, preparing for this. Like, they're probably getting some enjoyment out of, like, digging the grave. I don't know if they dig or not. I don't know what it is. Or is it magic? Getting the grave ready. Like, making the headstone and being like, all right, when's he going in? Like, that's what I imagine the Dementors doing. Not to be too creepy.
Nice.
Ugh. But, you know, that's a great point. And, like, Lizzie, just, like, to your question of, like, metabolizing, I feel like this is always what we come up against in polyjuice discussions, which is, like, sort of, where is the line of, like, science and where is the line of because magic?
Yeah. To be honest, for me, yeah, I'm a little bit more of the because magic side of things, you know? But anyway.
Yes. I just like to pick out a lot of things, and I was like, oh, maybe this is a potential loophole.
It's interesting.
So I, in the sake of moving on to more picking apart of Barty Crouch Jr.'s confessions, there was another line that he gave while he was giving his, I can't remember if it was his confession. Oh no, he was still moody at that time. It was when he was monologuing to Harry, and then there was this line that he gave about Voldemort. I will be his dearest, his closest supporter, closer than a son. And what do we think Barty Crouch Jr. means by saying that he's closer than a son? Is this like some Bellatrix crazy stuff? Or is this something like he wants to have like a familial relationship with Voldemort? I didn't really understand that line, to be honest with you.
I think Crouch, so he has not the most loving father, and I'm guessing that Crouch Sr. is all about or the relationship is a lot about him not being proud enough of his son and his son never being able to achieve enough. And Voldemort probably treated him with as much love and care as his father did. And I think then Crouch Jr. now has the hope that Voldemort at least will be proud of him. And I think that is the thing he's missing so deeply in his real father-son relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I hadn't really thought about this before. Like you point out the sort of closer than a son. Like, what does that mean? And because he does make a very he makes the comparison between himself and Voldemort and saying like, we both had very disappointing fathers and we both killed our fathers. He's sort of saying like, we want a father figure who is a certain way, but fathers aren't that way. Like, we haven't actually been able to get that for ourselves. So he's sort of saying that Voldemort will, like, that the relationship between him and Voldemort will be, like, better than the relationship that either of them had with their own fathers. That, this is the version of that is like the ideal. Like, okay, real fathers and sons don't have this real closeness, but we could have that.
I think I think Barty Crouch Jr. is putting too much stock into thinking that Voldemort is capable of love because we know that he cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so I've spent so much time writing about this for the Death Eater book I'm working on, but basically I think that in line with what Sophia said, Barty Crouch Jr., he has daddy issues, and all he wants is Voldemort to, be his father figure. And I think Voldemort very much encouraged that. I think Voldemort very much had his reasons for manipulating Junior and, bringing him into the fold. And he's like, oh, this kid just wants some paternal affection? Okay, I got that. So I think, what Junior is saying here is that, he wants basically a father-son relationship with Voldemort, but because, like Sophia said, his view of actual biological father-son relationships is not a very positive one. He's a son to Barty Crouch Sr., and they are not close. So I think what he's saying is that he wants to be like a father-son with Voldemort, but where they are close. That's closer than a biological son often is. We'll be father-son, but we'll actually love each other.
Yeah.
And I want to piggyback off that. We see how much Junior has embraced the idea of Voldemort as his father figure, because he gives a whole spiel of how much like Voldemort he is. I think I want to read this paragraph because it's so in your face. "The Dark Lord and I," said Moody, and he looked completely insane now, towering over Harry, leering down at him, "have much in common. Both of us, for instance, had very disappointing fathers. Very disappointing indeed. Both of us suffered the indignity, Harry, of being named after those fathers. And both of us have had the pleasure, the very great pleasure, of killing our fathers to ensure the continued rise of the Dark Order." And I was like, oh, this guy has daddy issues.
You think?
Oh my God. He wants so badly to be just like his chosen father figure. He's trying to make that connection, and oh man.
Yeah.
This is intense.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I was looking at this quote, and one thing jumped out at me about 10 minutes before we started recording, which is why Karoline is yelling at me.
Yes.
The reference at the end to the Dark Order. What? This is the only mention of such a thing at any point in the series. We never hear those words before or after. And I am fascinated. What is the Dark Order? What are we doing here? It sounds like a cause or a movement or something. And there's no such movement in the series. I think one of the great strengths of the series and its villains is that the bad guys aren't their goal isn't to make evil win the day or anything ridiculous like that. They're motivated by, by bigotry, by ambition, by sadism, or, in Voldemort's case, by the hunt for immortality and revenge and all that. So what is this Dark Order?
That's really interesting.
I don't know. For me, it was always quite obvious, and now I'm doubting myself, but, the whole inspiration of Voldemort and Mudbloods, Half-Bloods, and so on. You all know where that's coming from. And they also looked at a new world order. And I always had that in my mind. And we see that with them then on the trains picking up the Muggleborns and putting them to Azkaban. And I think they want to establish a world where purebloods are kind of on the top of the world order, and then maybe you have half-bloods somewhere beneath there, and mudbloods shouldn't exist, and muggles are just there, basically like animals. So that was always what I thought that was, and it always seemed very, very on the nose to me. But yeah, now that you said that, I'm doubting myself. Maybe that was just me overthinking things in that direction.
No, that makes sense to me, but also, yeah.
I agree they want all of that, but what's that have to do with dark?
Yeah.
Dark dark magic is a branch of magic, basically, which seems to have nothing to do with pureblood supremacy and all that, which is what they all want.
But why then would but we do see this language of dark being associated with Voldemort, where he is the Dark Lord, he has the dark mark. So clearly that is something that he is using to sort of that his followers associate him with dark something, dark mark, dark order, dark lord. So it's not just about all of the other things about pureblood supremacy. It's also some sort of supremacy of dark arts.
Do you think it's a supremacy of dark arts, or do you think it's Voldemort using that as a descriptor?
Yes.
I didn't get the sense that Voldemort is campaigning for, the legalization of the unforgivables or anything like that. I think Voldemort is just ooh, you know what makes people afraid? Dark magic. So I'm going to be the Dark Lord. And if I'm the Dark Lord, my mark is the dark mark.
I think it's marketing.
His followers are the only people who call him the Dark Lord. It's that is their term of respect for him. And you say, okay, he's not campaigning for, legalization of the unforgivables, but also, when we see him in control of Hogwarts, the unforgivables are legal, and that they're being used in the classroom, and they're not just being used on Muggleborns, because there are no Muggleborns there. They're being used on anyone who doesn't follow the rules. So it does seem like there is a, taking the dark arts and sort of glorifying them. And if we think about Durmstrang and how Draco is talking, how his dad talks of at Durmstrang they actually teach the dark arts, none of this defense rubbish that we learn, that there is clearly and it's not just connected to Voldemort, because Durmstrang isn't connected to Voldemort, but this strand of wizards who are saying we should practice the dark arts.
Fascinating. I never put all of that together, but yeah, that makes sense. Because when I heard Dark Order, I was what would the Dark Order even mean? Is it just anarchy? Is it are they, are people following the Dark Order anarchists, where they want to go back to the days where unforgivables were legal and you could kill muggles with impunity and all that kind of stuff? I guess I viewed the use of unforgivables as very much tools in service of pureblood supremacy, not as their own cause. But your point about Durmstrang is a very good one, actually. Yeah.
And also, that's not anarchy. Like, it can still be a very society with strict rules, but this is just legal, and this is how I think. Especially like with the Dark Order, there would be very, very clear rules, just very unfavorable for anyone who isn't pureblood. But there would be rules, so I don't think that's anarchy there.
Right. It's sort of more like might makes right type of society.
Yeah, which makes sense with magic is might is their slogan in the Ministry. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I haven't really thought about this before, so this is like a really fascinating question. But I do think, like, I think that the sense that the feeling I'm getting is like there's a portion of wizarding society who feels like the current rules of society are not allowing for the way of living and types of magic that they want to engage in. So for some people, it's like, we want to live only as purebloods and not have to deal with any muggleborns, not have to deal with muggles, not have to deal with maybe statute of secrecy or whatever it is. Like, you know, we don't want to deal with these, like, it, to be honest, it's kind of like some of the like PC culture of like, oh, what, now we have to go to school with these muggleborns and we're supposed to be nice to them and whatever. Like, no, we want to have our own, like, you know, we want to have our own wizard supremacy space, whatever. And then for some of those people, I think also they're like, well, who gets to say which magic I get to use and which I don't? Like, this type of magic is being branded as something I'm not allowed to do. And what if I want to do it? Like, shouldn't I be allowed to do it? And I think that, you know, and they're like, well, this is so powerful. There's all this powerful magic here that we're not being allowed to do because these people are scared or these people are telling us we can't do it. And Voldemort's coming along and he's sort of like rallying all of the people who are feeling on the fringes of what is acceptable in normal wizard society. And he's like, I have this new, like, I have this, like, I can give you all what you want.
I think it's really interesting that, like Irvin said at the beginning, that this is the only time we hear that term referenced in the series. So I wonder, and I think that all of these points are fantastic, and I wonder if, like, this could be a callback to, like, the original Wizarding World, and maybe, like, that term was used more often, and Barty Crouch Jr. is referencing back to that. Or could it just be a literary foil to the Order of the Phoenix? The Dark Order versus the Order of the Phoenix.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
I also, like, what's coming up for me as you're saying this is me imagining, like, okay, I'm imagining a young Barty Crouch Jr., like, on the internet, and, like, obviously he's not actually on the internet, but, like, you're imagining a teenage boy who is, like, angry with his dad and, like, wants to rebel, and he ends up, like, going down some, like, really weird paths on the internet that bring him into some, like, really dark places. Like, that's what I'm imagining, like, with him, but just, like, probably, like, reading books in the restricted section or whatever it is, or, like, you know, going to Nocturne Alley and being a rebel or whatever. It's gonna look different, but, like, maybe this idea of the Dark Order is something that has been kind of around in wizarding society for centuries, and, like, different people who practice the dark arts and write in these books are like, we want the, you know, rise of the Dark Order, like, that's what we're, you know, fighting for. And that, like, he could have sort of, like, picked up all of this stuff on his own, and, like, Voldemort is just the newest, like, Voldemort is the person who is offering that to the people who already have been wanting this, or have been, like, have gotten sort of indoctrinated into this idea.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that is how it unfortunately always works, right? And I don't think, I mean, the whole how do we have contacts with Muggles? Is there the statute of secrecy or not? Like, there's always been debate on the importance of wizards versus Muggles, and I think you can already see that just when looking at quote-unquote normal wizards. Look at how Ron is sometimes talking, and that only happens when this kind of belief system is already there in a society. Doesn't have to be quite as extreme there, but it is there. And I think the whole othering of people happens very easily, happens everywhere. And I think it's very easy when you have this very distinguishable factor of magic or no magic to go on. Yeah.
I really love your guys' ideas about what the Dark Order could be if it's a thing. I have an alternative theory for what Barty Crouch Jr. is referring to here. And again, I've come up with this like 10 minutes ago, so bear with me. But like, even if the Dark Order was such a thing, being motivated by wanting all of that, by wanting to, use dark magic and all of that, it's much more of like a capital C cause. And I feel like most of the antagonists in this series are not Gryffindors and, aren't fighting for causes so much as they are fighting for, for themselves, and so forth. So I actually think where Barty Crouch Jr. is coming at this, and sorry, the other thing is like, Junior says that both Voldemort and I killed our fathers in service of the rise of the Dark Order. And it's like, okay, like Barty Crouch Jr. killing his father, if you like squint and like close one eye and tilt your head and close the other eye, like maybe it looks like he did that for a cause instead of for Voldemort. Voldemort killed his own father purely for himself. For his own gain, for his own vendettas.
Like, pure spite, really. Like, for himself, as in, like, that's the only thing he got out of it was revenge, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it wasn't for any advancement of anything else.
Yeah.
So I actually think I want to go back to what Sophia said about Voldemort and the Dark Lord and the Dark Mark. I think that basically Barty Crouch Jr. is so unhinged that he has turned Voldemort into more of a myth than even Voldemort aimed for. I think that for him, the Dark Order is Voldemort. I think that, like, the rise of the Dark Order is the rise of Lord Voldemort and his beautiful, glorious vision and what he's bringing into the world. Mm-hmm. Like, I think, for him, serving Voldemort, like, goes from, like, serving the personal to Lord Voldemort as a movement. And I could make certain hot takes at this point about certain political movements in the United States. We can glaze over that. But yeah, I think, like, my theory for what the Dark Order is just straight up Barty Crouch Jr. mythologizing Voldemort even more into a movement. Because I think that makes more sense with how I see his character, but I'm also so impressed with what you guys have come up with for what a Dark Order could actually be outside of Junior's mania.
But I don't think those two have to be exclusive. I mean, it could be that this is something that has been wandering around for a while, and Voldemort picked that up, and or it very much aligns with Voldemort's ideas, and he might have talked about that with his followers, but maybe doesn't advertise that to the general public as much. And of course, for Junior, he is then the personification of that. And he obviously makes Voldemort out to be much more than he actually is. which I think a lot of his followers are obviously doing. So I don't think, I think both of it can be right. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I do, but I think Junior goes like the extra mile in Voldemort.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, I feel like Voldemort's followers think of him as very powerful, very fearsome, someone to be respected. But Junior is approaching this with almost like a religious fervor, it almost reminds me of, where just like, for him, Voldemort is like combination, like, father figure and messiah.
Yeah, but like, I think Voldemort likes that, because he wants to be seen
absolutely.
like that. So I think that's why they're so, I mean, close is the wrong word, but that's why that relationship works, because he really makes him out to be kind of like a god figure.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think a lot of not all, but I think there are other people and Death Eaters and just who see Voldemort as representing a movement. Like, what's coming to mind is like the Black family, who like, they're not Death Eaters, but they are like seeing him, they think he has the right idea of things. Like, they see him as representing something. So I think like, there are other people who are seeing him represent a movement. But the thing is, what I find really interesting here is that this fanaticism is, I don't know when it comes, like, because he, like, okay, so there's the time when he says, okay, I asked you whether he forgave the scum who never even went to look for him, those treacherous cowards who wouldn't even brave Azkaban for him, the faithless, worthless bits of filth who were brave enough to cavort in masks at the Quidditch World Cup but fled at the sight of the dark mark when I fired it into the sky. And like, okay, he is being harsh on all of the other Death Eaters, but I'm like, you weren't any different. Like, you weren't brave enough to go to Azkaban for him. You were begging to, like, you were so ready to denounce Voldemort the second Azkaban was an option. And you were begging to not go to Azkaban. And to me, this shows, like, that something really changed within him during that time, that I don't think he was always this devoted to Voldemort. I really don't. Like, I think that before he went to Azkaban, he was a teenager who got in over his head, kind of, like, who thought this would be fun and then got terrified.
Oh, I completely disagree. I read him pretty much the exact opposite.
Okay, but so how do you explain the difference between him begging not to go to Azkaban and then being like, these scum who wouldn't even brave Azkaban for him? So,
this, is largely going to be a debate for another day. But just quickly, I think that his performance at the trial is exactly that. It's a performance. I think that he is, like, primarily motivated by doing, like, a huge you to his father, and that the best way to sort of go scorched earth and ruin his father's life as he's being carted off to Azkaban is to play the victim and turn public opinion against him, which he very successfully does.
I think either way would have turned public opinion against him. If he had started, like, doing a Bellatrix and talking about how, how much he loved Voldemort and how, like, he was happy to go to Azkaban for this cause and then would like, someday Voldemort will come back or whatever, that also would have turned public opinion against Crouch. They would have just been...
I disagree, because if, like, Barty Crouch Jr. is Bellatrix, then Barty Crouch Sr. is seen as, like, harsh, but, like, fair, doing what he has to do, locking up his very dangerous son. Whereas Sirius says that the way public opinion turned against Barty Crouch Sr. is that after the kid was sent to Azkaban, people started asking, like, how did, like, a good lad from a good family go so badly astray? And again, I feel like there has to be some level of sympathy engendered for Junior in order for people to turn against Senior.
I disagree. I think because what you just said could go either way of like, how did a boy from a good family go so badly astray? And their answer is his father must not have paid any attention to him. And if he is like out there saying like, I love Voldemort, whatever, they would be asking that question even more. They'd be like, oh my God, how did his son get so evil? And they would be like, wow, either like we don't know everything about Barty Crouch Sr. as we thought we did, or he like has really alienated his son or treated his son badly, like, or like, you know, I think it would have a different but equally catastrophic effect on Senior's reputation.
I have a completely different theory here. I think I don't think it was a play. I think it is very likely of a fanatic teenager to still be scared of prison and trying to do everything to get out of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, looking at the real world, that's also what you can see. And then it's also not unrealistic when he's then sent to prison to like keep that belief inside of him, and of course making it stronger. But I think the fanaticism was already there, and you can be fanatic and still, especially as a teenager, be incredibly scared of what is happening in Azkaban.
Yeah,
I agree with Karolina's interpretation. Definitely, I think that while he was in prison, he needed something to hold on to, just like Sirius needed something to hold on to, and that's what he latched on, is his love for Voldemort.
I guess, like, my main argument against Sophia's theory of, like, what changed is I don't think it could have changed. I think if sort of you look at Junior's timeline of, like, he is thrown in Azkaban right after the trial, he presumably isn't, like, hanging out with the other prisoners in the rec room and, like, chatting. Like, I don't think he could have gotten much more radicalized in prison. I think he definitely could have, like, stewed in what he already believed and was like, but I think the fanaticism had to be there because by the time he gets out of prison, he is, like, all in on the fanatic loyalty to Voldemort.
Well, I agree, as in, I think that the beliefs were there, all of that, but, like, the actual loyalty seems to have increased a ton. And the way I see that is, like, I think a few things. I think that he has to, like, because he was just as, like, faithless as the other Death Eaters, to be honest, in that he's saying, like, oh, they, like, wouldn't brave Azkaban for him, like, how horrible, I hate them so much. And I think that he's just, like, not a very emotionally, reflective person. And he hates them because he's jealous. He hates them because they got to be free and he didn't. And so he has changed it in his mind, where it used to be, I was, like, thrown into Azkaban. I had no choice. I was thrown into Azkaban by my father. I had no choice. And then he changes it in his mind to, no. It's not that I had no choice and they had the choice. It's that I, braved Azkaban for him. I sacrificed so much for him. He has turned himself into this, like, martyr, where he wasn't a martyr. It was just he had bad luck and these other Death Eaters had good luck. That's all. The only difference between them, I think, before all of this is that they had better luck than he did in not being thrown into Azkaban. But then he changes it in his mind to be like, I was this martyr, I sacrificed myself. And so then he becomes more and more devoted because he's created this idea of himself as being this martyr. And if he's a martyr, then that can, like, make him be able to handle everything that he's lost, because he lost a huge chunk of his life just, like, being under the Imperious Curse, all of that. And he like treats it as, like, I had to sacrifice so much for this cause. I had to sacrifice so much, and I am now going to be rewarded.
But I think his main objection isn't that Death Eaters didn't go to Azkaban, his main objection is that they were free and they didn't do anything to help Voldemort. Like, the fact that they were free, not in Azkaban, and they didn't go look for Voldemort, didn't try to help him, I think that is his biggest objection to them. Not that they wouldn't voluntarily go to Azkaban, but that they were free and
But he says
disloyal.
that they wouldn't even brave Azkaban for him. Like, to me, that's like...
But he says that in the sentence after who never even went to look for him. Whether he forgave the scum who never even went to look for him. That's his number one complaint. The treacherous cowards who wouldn't even brave Azkaban. They were like, if they weren't looking for him, they should have been stuck in Azkaban like I was.
Yeah, but he was... Yeah, I disagree, but I think, let's move on, because otherwise we'll be on here forever.
Yeah. I will just, build on that. I think, ironically, Junior's standard for loyalty to the Dark Lord is higher than Voldemort's own.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the graveyard, Voldemort is displeased with how, the respectable Death Eaters abandoned him. But I think Voldemort understands that his relationship with the Death Eaters is, transactional at the end of the day. His whole resurrection spectacular is calibrated to set the expectation of loyalty, but he doesn't go scorched earth on the disloyal Death Eaters the way Junior wants him to, honestly, because he can't afford to, because, Voldemort can't be starting out with Junior and Wormtail as his only Death Eaters to take on the Ministry. Whereas, Barty Crouch Sr. is, full-on scorched earth. He's like, no, loyalty above all else. And just, yeah, the irony of Junior's exacting standards never fails to, fascinate me.
And that totally makes sense to me, because he is making the highest possible standards so that he can be the only possible person who could fit them, Mm-hmm. And so that is him he wants to be recognized. That's what he's saying is tell me that he told them that I am the most faithful. He wants the standards to be super high so that he is even better in comparison to them.
Yes.
Talking about people who are obsessed with Voldemort, I think, Lizzie, you have another question that we could ask our listeners to.
Yes, I think that this would be a good one. We already kind of interpreted what we think of Barty Crouch Jr.'s, what he thinks of Voldemort, but another character who also is very obsessed with Voldemort is Bellatrix. And I know that this isn't an episode about Bellatrix, so this could be kind of a separate thing, but do we think that Bellatrix is more obsessed with Voldemort, or is Barty Crouch Jr.? And please take Cursed Child out of your interpretation.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, me, pick me.
Go,
pick me.
Irvin.
I've thought a lot about this, and 200% Barty Crouch Jr. is more obsessed with Voldemort.
Interesting. I'm interested in your reasoning there.
Yeah. Okay, so the way I see it, Bellatrix falls in love with Voldemort, but she still has her own selfish desires. In light of that, she likes hurting people, and this is a great venue to do so. But we see that she still has independent thought and desires of what Voldemort wants, and we see this most notably in Spinner's End. Because she's willing to go against Voldemort for the sake of her sister. So, Bellatrix is incredibly loyal, and there's love there, but I don't think they are, as, flat out 100% unconditional as Barty Crouch Jr. Junior is, all in for Voldemort, just with, zero asterisks. No ifs, ands, or buts. There are two quotes that I pulled from this chapter, where he says, "It was my dream, my greatest ambition, to serve him, to prove myself to him." And at the end of the scene in this chapter, he once again uses the same term for, what he wants from Voldemort after carrying out this impossible, scheme, where he says, "I will be honored by him beyond the dreams of wizards." The insane smile lit his features once more. And, like, those are the final words Barty Crouch Jr. ever says in this series. Like, the searing hope that he has to be honored by Voldemort. Like, not rewarded, not taught by Voldemort. He just wants to be honored. So, like, I think this is why Barty is the MVP of all Death Eaters for Voldemort, because absolutely all he wants is paternal affection from Voldemort at the end of the day. And he is so all in because he has nothing left to lose.
I mean, to be fair, his last words weren't, from his perspective, meant to be his last words, I think.
Well, that's often true, to be honest.
I mean, not always thinking of Dobby here. But I had two thoughts on that. I think he still has his selfish reasons. I think he found pleasure in killing his father, and I think that is one of his desires.
I mean, he can still enjoy what he's doing for Voldemort.
No. I get what you're saying, but still, like, I feel like that it's not so much like just killing. It's like killing his father. That's what he wants to do. And then I just came up with the question of if his mother was still alive, because I feel like they had a very different relationship than him and his dad. And you just said Bellatrix went against Voldemort to save her sister. Do you think he would have gone against Voldemort to save his mother if she was still alive?
No. Like, that one you need to think about, in fairness, but I think no. I think he is just so all in and so radicalized by this point that he would literally sell out his own mother. Are you saying
at which point? Like, when he's a teenager or when he's...
Yeah.
No. Afterwards.
Afterwards, if she was still alive, like... Yeah, that's a bit different. If she was still alive, things would look different.
Yeah, would he have been so radicalized? Of course. So it's an impossible question to ask, but I just thought about that when you talked about this.
Yeah, it's hard for me to answer that.
It's a good question, though. But I mean, he already was part of the Death Eaters when his mom was alive, so I don't think her being around would really change that once he gets out of Azkaban.
I think it's different. Yeah, like, I don't know, being part of the Death Eaters and like trying to save someone like who you love is a different question.
Yeah. Because, like, we see the Malfoys, right? You know, like all in on being a Death Eater, but like when their family and their loved ones are threatened, they're like, okay, whoa, there's a line.
Yeah. I think it's kind of impossible for me to quite answer that question. I don't think that, this is my personal belief, I don't think young Barty Crouch had the guts to stand up to Voldemort to save his mom, but that doesn't mean that he wouldn't want to. Older Barty Crouch, it's just too impossible to say, because I think he just would be different if his mom was still alive. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what about going back to Lizzie's question of Bellatrix for Barty Crouch Jr.? I've given my, well, not 2 cents, like a whole $1. What about you guys?
I think you make great points. I think that Bellatrix understands Voldemort a lot better than Barty Crouch does. And I think that makes her relationship with him far more realistic. Where, like, for example, we see, like, when she sees the Sword of Gryffindor at Malfoy Manor, and she is like, Voldemort will kill all of us if this is the real sword. Like, we can't tell him. You know, like, her focus is like, she knows him and what he will do, and she knows that like I think we see throughout that, like, she is obsessed with him and she wants him to believe she's the most faithful, she wants him to love her, but she is very realistic here, where she's like, whenever there's something where she's like, yeah, no, he'll just kill you, like, no, like, he, like, you know, and I think that sort of tempers the feeling of obsession. Like, because I think with Barty Crouch Jr., like, he is so obsessed with Voldemort that Voldemort, has taken on something in his mind that Voldemort isn't. Voldemort is not going to be his father figure. Voldemort is, like, he is not going to be his favorite person forever. He's only his favorite person as long as he keeps doing exactly what he wants all the time. And even then, he doesn't actually care about him. And, like, I find the fact that he, like, tries to kill Harry, like, a sign that he doesn't really understand Voldemort, because Voldemort would not want that. He's like, imagine how much he's going to praise me for killing Harry. And I'm like, you don't understand Voldemort at all.
I don't know if I quite agree with that, because the whole, like, I must be the one to kill Harry thing only really comes up in Half-Blood Prince. So I think at this point, like, Voldemort...
No, it comes up in Order of the Phoenix. In the Department of Mysteries.
Yeah, don't they say that he wants Harry alive when they're going through the battle?
Yeah, I think they say that. They say, don't touch Harry, you can kill the others if necessary.
Fair.
So...
Okay, fine. Well, yeah, let's not get sidetracked.
Okay, we'll put that aside. We'll come back to it some other time. We'll be good. But I think we can all agree that he just doesn't know Voldemort very well. He doesn't understand him. And that allows him to have this obsession that is, like, so over the top because it's not based in reality at all. And Bellatrix is tempered by the fact that she is basing it in reality.
Yeah, like, to your example of, like, when Bellatrix, finds the Sword of Gryffindor, I think if that happened to Barty Crouch Jr., he would call Voldemort. Like, he would be like, I agree. Voldemort needs to know about this, so I'm gonna call him. Like, sort of, the thought of what Voldemort would do to him just wouldn't cross
and I think
his
he
mind.
would assume that he would be, like... that Voldemort would do nothing to him, and that Voldemort would be like, wow, thank you so much for telling me you're such a great son,
Yes. Yeah, like, well, I'll take you out for ice cream after.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have the fear that all the other Death Eaters have.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's it. That is 100% it.
I didn't think it through that much, but, like, for me... I'm not sure if I can completely agree. I don't have a definite answer, but I think the fact that Bellatrix, she's just much more grounded in her family than Crouch ever is, of course. And the fact that she understands Voldemort so much better and is still so obsessed with him. So I think it's maybe for me a little bit about what kind of... what kind of now my English is failing me, matrices do you put on that on defining how obsessed someone is? Because I think, like, understanding Voldemort and being so obsessed with him, or thinking him to be like a godlike figure and being obsessed with him, I think it's just a different quality, maybe.
Yeah.
That's actually fair. That it's, like, almost more impressive how obsessed Bellatrix is when she understands that Voldemort might kill her in an instant for something that's not her fault. Yeah. It's like, woo, that is next level obsession.
Yeah. I do want to note that the narration, the language here, definitely thinks Barty Crouch Jr. is the most cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on this topic, because it keeps using the word insane. Yeah. So 4 times throughout this chapter, the narration refers to Moody, or Barty Crouch Jr., as insane. And all 4 times, it's immediately following him talking about his relationship with Voldemort. So, like, evidently, the narration does not approve of Junior's daddy issues and his adoration or obsession for Voldemort.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But Lizzie, what about you? How do you answer your own question?
I think just based off of the delusions that we know that Barty Crouch Jr. has, he's the more cuckoo bananas for Voldemort.
Okay, fair enough. Listeners, I also want to hear from you. I think we're gonna add another poll to this chapter and ask you who you think is more obsessed with Voldemort, Bellatrix or Barty.
I like that. I just learned how to do polls on the website, so I'm very happily practicing my skill again. Do the very easy task of adding a poll. And
Yes.
please vote so that me learning that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we want to continue with Crouch Jr. As obsessed as he is. He still kind of has relatively normal traits, or at least the very normal.
He has one.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
One single solitary normal trait mentioned in this chapter. During this whole bit, there's this like blink and you miss it moment where it says that Barty Crouch Jr. loved Quidditch. And this is the only thing that, like, humanizes him. And, like, reading it, like, he's so insane. Like, he's so, like, megalomaniacal that, like, it always takes me aback, when I was like, whoa. Like, this psychopath, like, can do something as normal as loving Quidditch. It always just jumps out at me when I'm reading this chapter.
That is interesting. And, like, you know, Voldemort doesn't have anything like that. Voldemort doesn't love Quidditch that we know of. To me, it really reminds me of Regulus Black, the moment when Harry is looking through his room and sees that he was a seeker, and is like, there's like this moment of like, oh, this was just, he's kind of like me. Like, he's not that different. He's just a normal guy. And that's like right before we start, like, we get all of the information about Regulus.
I love that so much.
But yeah, with Barty Crouch as well, that it's just like, oh, these are just normal teenage boys. Like, I think it kind of works that it is like connects to Harry in that way. It's like they all share the same interests. They were all just normal teenagers, and some of them went down the right path and some of them didn't. But like, they all started out in the same place.
And I think it's very smart and important to humanize villains. And I think it's also done throughout the books quite well. Because villains in the real world are human. And I think if you look at every horrible person that has existed in the world, you will find they have very normal hobby or interests. They might have also very crazy hobby and interests, but they also have very normal hobby and interests because they are human. And that is what makes them scary. And I think as soon as we look at villains and dehumanize them, it makes them more dangerous, because then we kind of come up with this godlike creature and not with a human anymore, and kind of push away how horrible human beings can be to each other. And that's also a reason why I really, really dislike Voldemort's death in the movies, because in the books, it's so obvious. He is a man that did horrible things, that tried to become this persona that he went there, but he is still human, and in his death, he is human. And the movies really, really did that dirty.
Yeah, Grace talks a lot about this in the Voldemort book, that basically, like, Voldemort, or Tom as she calls him, is so desperate to not be seen as human that he, like, tries to strip away everything that does make him human in service of building this Voldemort persona. And I think that's such a good contrast to what we see here with Barty, because there is nothing humanizing we see about Voldemort, and I think that's very much by design. Like, Voldemort can't keep up the, like, the mythology of Lord Voldemort if people know that he likes Quidditch, or has a favorite book, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he's smart. He probably knows that very well. And like he...
Yeah. By design, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But Lizzie, talk of Voldemort. You have questions about some of Voldemort's choices that have led us to this moment.
Yeah, you beat me to it. So I, one of the things that was called out was Voldemort came to Barty Crouch Jr. and told him the plan and the mission that he needed to complete in order to get Harry Potter over to the Riddle House and perform these acts of resurrection. So I was thinking about, okay, why would Voldemort have chosen Barty Crouch Jr. for this mission in the first place, knowing that Harry was going to be at Hogwarts like he always is? And why wouldn't Voldemort have chosen Snape to do these activities because Snape was already there and he was already working for Voldemort and to Voldemort's knowledge doing all these things undercover to have what was it like to keep an eye on Dumbledore, keep an eye on Harry. I don't really remember exactly why Voldemort planted Snape there, but someone was already there. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like, why add yet another person to Hogwarts for the Dark Lord?
It's because he didn't know that Snape was still working for him. I thought
he did.
No, so because basically Snape goes to Voldemort like a couple hours after all of this, after the Resurrection Spectacular. So Voldemort says that he thinks that Voldemort may have betrayed him. Sorry, God. Names. Voldemort says that he thinks Snape has betrayed him forever. Because the last time they interacted, Snape was going out of his way to stop Quirrellmort from stealing the stone. And so Voldemort didn't reveal himself to Snape, but he's like, well, last time I was there, Snape spent an awful lot of time trying to stymie my faithful servant's efforts to bring me back. And so basically, Snape comes back after all of this and spins Voldemort a tale of no, I was loyal all along. I just didn't realize it was you. I thought it was Quirrell. If I'd only known it was you. But at this point, Voldemort absolutely thinks that Snape is no longer loyal. And he even makes a reference to him during his big speech to the Death Eaters, where he's like, here's one who ran away. Here's one who will be killed. Snape is one of the ones he mentions as I think he has deserted me.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't mention by name, but we can infer. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But what about, Prisoner of Azkaban and, Wormtail escaping? Snape was there for all of that, and Wormtail saw him working against Sirius Black, working against Lupin and all those people, so wouldn't that be a way to say, oh yeah, he's still loyal to the dark side, he's capturing all of the good wizards?
But that's not evidence, because Snape hates Sirius and Lupin. That is personal vendettas. That's the thing. We see Snape working against Sirius, against Lupin, against Quirrell, but we never see him working for or against Voldemort.
Okay.
In that period.
And when he's in the Shrieking Shack, and Wormtail might not have been listening to all of this because, like, as Sirius was saying, he's, like, squeaking around on the floor, like, being desperate. But Snape is saying, like, oh, Sirius, you're working for the Dark Lord, like, you, like, he is sort of saying, Sirius, you're working for Voldemort, and therefore you should go to the Dementors. So, like, if Wormtail was hearing that, what he might be reporting to Voldemort is, like, yeah, he was all for throwing someone he thought was your faithful Death Eater to the Dementors. So it might actually backfire.
Yeah. And I think this is too sensitive a plot for Voldemort to, like, take his chances on Snape's loyalty.
Yeah. And I think what's good about Barty Crouch Jr. is, like, Barty Crouch Jr. has nothing to live for. Like, you know, he has, like, he has nothing to lose. And Voldemort shows up and is like, I'm saving you from, like, this prison that you've been in, and I'm giving you this opportunity. And, like, you know, like, Barty Crouch Jr. is much more malleable, whereas, like, someone like Snape or any of the other Death Eaters, like, they have their lives now, and they have something to lose, therefore. And Barty Crouch Jr. has nothing to lose. So it's like he is an easy person to convince.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, full disclosure, like, I read this chapter, but I haven't gone back to read, like, other books or other passages, so I'm really just doing a dry reading on everything that came out in this chapter and my fading memory about other things that happened. So I could be very inaccurate with some of my questioning.
Lizzie, you didn't reread the entire Harry Potter series to prep for this podcast?
Darn.
What kind of slacker are you? Listeners and potential hosts, we do not actually expect you to reread the entire Harry Potter series before coming on our show.
No, we have Irvin to do that. He knows everything. So
yes, I reread the entire 7-book series before every episode.
Every episode.
And then he writes down all of his thoughts.
That's why we're still here.
So I actually want to talk about what we learn of Crouch Sr.'s death.
Yes. Horrible.
Because I thought it was so symbolic and so telling what Junior says about how he disposed of his father. Because he goes out of his way to make sure that Barty Crouch Sr.'s death is as undignified as possible. He says, "I transfigured my father's body. He became a bone. I buried it in the freshly dug earth in front of Hagrid's cabin." Mm-hmm. And I thought the symbolism here is that he literally is taking away his father's humanity by turning him into a bone, the way he felt that, his father did to him when he put him under the Imperious Curse. And then he buried him, not with honor or dignity or anything like that, but literally in dirt that had nifflers scampering through it the next day.
Yeah.
I have
you really can't come up with a bigger you than that.
Yeah. But also I have questions. So again, back to the how long does magic last? And especially with the notion that we sometimes have that magic dies with the one having done the magic also dies. So we don't really know if Barty Crouch Jr. dies, right? He gets the Dementor's kiss, so I'm not sure if that would then apply to. But I just thought of suddenly Fang having, or some creature having a bone in their mouth, and suddenly it's Barty Crouch, or just a bone lying around in Hagrid's garden, and poof, it's Crouch.
Oh no, I think that was part of the plan. I think one of the reasons that Junior turned him into a bone specifically is it if he wants to be petty and he wants to defile his father's body even further, he's I'll bury him into a bone and we'll see if Fang wants to dig it up and play fetch.
Interesting. That's interesting. I don't know if that's exactly my read on it, but that is a really interesting question of how long does the magic last? Because in my head, always he's just a bone now. He is not a body. But there are certain types of magic, I guess we don't know that much about transfiguration and how long something lasts. And if you can transfigure yourself, there's human transfiguration, but I could imagine that's different when someone's dead, where what you can do with human transfiguration when someone is alive is you can transfigure them into other living things. You could transfigure so that, they are a ferret, for example. But I don't think you can't turn a living person into a bone, but you can turn clearly a dead person into a bone. Mm-hmm. So that makes me wonder if what the sort of is he just a bone forever because he's no longer alive and therefore he can be transfigured into just an object?
Yeah, I would imagine it's much harder to transfigure living things than inanimate ones.
Right.
And like you say, we really don't know enough about the wider world of how transfiguration works. But I also always thought that he's
we know that Horace Slughorn becomes an armchair, so you can become something inanimate. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, and a pig becomes a desk and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess with a human, I just think of it a little bit differently. I guess with humans, I had always thought like, oh, now I'm really fascinated about what it's like to be a human as an armchair. But okay, sorry, go on. Go on.
But yeah, like I just agree with you. I think that like the body's gonna be a bone like until Crouch Jr. dies, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so you think he will turn back to Crouch Sr. in the end?
I mean, but like, again, I don't think...
Yeah, that's my follow-up question. What will he look like? Will he look like someone being dead for, I don't know, when Crouch Jr. dies, but like, will he look like a corpse that has been dead for 2 years, or will he look like someone who just died? Like, does the transfiguration save him from decomposing?
So
probably.
That's interesting.
I don't think that we have enough evidence about, like, after someone dies, what happens to every single spell they've ever cast. Like, we have evidence that, like, if you cast a charm on another living person and then you die, the charm just goes away, as we see with Harry.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, we don't actually have any other evidence of that. So, and I think there would be some evidence to contradict the idea that any magic you perform goes away after you die, because, like, there are magical places that have been enchanted by wizards, and it's like they've been enchanted for centuries, and it's not like, oh, the wizard died and guess the place is no longer enchanted in that way. Like, or at least we have no evidence of that. So, like, I wonder if it's like, the spells you put on a living human can't keep going after you die, but, like, the spell you put on a dead human, I don't think it's necessarily the same thing. Or we don't know. I think it's open to debate.
Yeah, honestly, like, my honest answer is, like, a big shrug.
Yeah.
Of the, like, I
don't know.
I don't think we know.
I don't think we know.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion. I just have many follow-up questions regarding like which way it goes. But yeah, I don't know either way.
But I think it's interesting, like, your thoughts about, like, okay, what is the symbolism of it being a bone? Like, I wonder if he knew about the resurrection potion.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
No. So that, yes. So, like, why a bone? I have 3 reasons. One is that, like, I think he was hoping Fang would play fetch with him. I genuinely. And also, like, you know, a bone is, like, a perfectly normal thing to find in the dirt.
Yeah,
so it's clever in terms of avoiding suspicion. But I think the main reason is that it's Voldemort's resurrection potion.
Mm-hmm.
I think Crouch Jr. definitely knew about, like, the flesh, blood, and bone of it all, because that, like, informs the logistics of what's going on all year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that this is... it would have been top of mind for Junior. That just, like, bones, fathers, bone of the father, father's bones.
Yes.
So I think he just has that, like, connection. So, like, when he's, like, trying to think of something, that's what comes up.
Yes.
And I also think this is just, like, another way for him to, like, want to connect with Voldemort.
Yeah.
Is just like, yeah, like, Voldemort is using bones of the father, so I, like Voldemort, will just turn my father into a bone.
Okay, so you think it's more like an homage and not like, oh, I might also want to be resurrected one day, because then I think why put it in Hagrid's garden? Because
I
find
think
a better place.
It's just he wants to be just like Voldemort. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, then I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, the more and more we pick this apart, I just think of Barty Crouch Jr. being a copycat.
It feels very immature. Like, it makes him feel very emotionally young. Yeah, he's just like, well, Voldemort does it, so I want to do it too. Like, you know, and then he's going to love me. You know, and this is what, like, very young kids will do, is if there's, like, you know, an older person they admire or whatever, they might be like, oh, whatever they have to eat, that's my favorite thing to eat. Their favorite color is my favorite color. Or, like, it doesn't have to be someone older, but, like, someone they admire, they're like, That's my favorite thing. That's exactly what Barty Crouch Jr. is doing. He's like, you see, it's my favorite thing too. I love killing my father too. You know.
I don't know. Is it something with dementors suppressing emotions, or that when you're around dementors you don't have your full range of emotion, that this kind of stunts your emotional growth?
I don't think so, because we see that with Sirius too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
because you can't access your positive emotions, so you're just stuck with all of the negative emotions, and you're also not having any new life experiences. You are just stuck in the past, and you like don't have the like emotional space to healthfully, I don't know what the right word here is, but process it. Like it's not, you can't process it in a healthy way because you're just like ruminating from the dementors. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it might just be like a more mundane explanation of the like Sophia said, if you're just stuck incarcerated without the ability to interact with anyone or anything, like it makes perfect sense why you would be stunted. Just based on that.
But also you don't have like a safe space in your head. Your head is misery all the time.
And there's no rehabilitation program for Azkaban that we know of.
No, we touched on this on the Law and Order episode a while back, but like the fact that like there's no intermediate step between like, you know, you're a free man, you got to pay a couple galleons and thrown into Azkaban is so f***ed up.
Wild. Yeah, really is.
There was another point that happened during the Veritaserum confession that really stood out to me, and partially because maybe my memory isn't very good about like the sequence of events that we see the Marauders map come up in the books after Prisoner of Azkaban. And there was a quote that I did not put in the doc, but it was where Barty Crouch Jr. references Harry's map, seeing Barty Crouch Sr. on the map, and that's how he found him in the woods, and the killing happened and all of that. But I thought it was so interesting that Dumbledore did not know about the Marauders map because he seemed shocked when the map was brought up. So weren't there situations where staff members have previously encountered the map? Like Filch took it from Fred and George. I think there was a whole scene with Snape trying to get the map to talk to him. Lupin also had his hands on the map, and Barty Crouch Jr. himself had the map in his possession at one point. So how did Dumbledore not know about it at this point, considering that it's been kind of circulating through the series since book 3?
Good question, and I think it makes sense to just go through, like, everyone who could have told him in order, because I think it makes perfect sense Dumbledore doesn't know. So, first up, like, Barty Crouch Jr. obviously has his reasons for not telling Dumbledore about the map.
Yeah, right.
For Snape, because we know Snape knew about the map, I made the case last episode that basically Snape and Dumbledore are not speaking. Like, from, like, the time of the Prisoner of Azkaban finale to, like, basically this chapter, like, Snape and Dumbledore are on the outs, and Snape is not coming to him being like, well, did you know that Potter has a map now?
And also it might have been a matter of pride there, because he probably knows where that map comes from, and then admitting that his greatest school enemies were so brilliant as to concoct that map. I mean,
and it insulted him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he also doesn't know that Harry still has it, because last he saw it was in Lupin's office.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point.
So he might not even realize, well, he does by Egg in the Eye chapter, because he sees the parchment and he's like, that's Potter's, you know. But before that point, he doesn't even know that Lupin gave it back to Harry. So he might think that Lupin decided to keep it as like a nostalgia thing or whatever.
Yeah. So then as for Filch, I think it's a fairly mundane explanation. Either Filch doesn't realize it's gone, or it's not a great look for him if students are stealing artifacts he's confiscated. So like, I could see Filch just not wanting to tell Dumbledore because it looks bad.
And he doesn't necessarily know that Harry was the one who did it. If he knows it's gone.
And even if he did, like, he doesn't really know what it is, and why would he update Dumbledore about, like, every little joke item that students brought in, or then that went missing? Like, I think he would have to report to Dumbledore every day there.
And Dumbledore would have no way of knowing that the twins gave it to Harry either way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally. Right, sorry,
yeah.
Harry didn't steal it. Sorry. The twins stole it.
So, Lizzie, the most interesting candidate here is Lupin.
Yes.
So, I get what's going on. Like, basically, I think Lupin wanted to keep the map as, like, Harry's aid to rule breaking, sort of like, you know, with the marauder spirit of, you know, getting up to no good. However, at the end of Prisoner of Azkaban, it says that he told Dumbledore everything. And how he managed to tell Dumbledore everything and completely omit mentioning the map is honestly impressive.
It's impressive, but I understand, because I mean that he would have had to tell Dumbledore of how much potential danger the school was in, and that Lupin knew about all of that. And of course, it was not real danger in the end, but Lupin didn't know that, and I can understand why he kept that from Dumbledore.
Yeah,
and Dumbledore didn't read his mind either.
No.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure Dumbledore was asking Lupin about it when he was being recruited for the Order, when they were bringing that back together.
Yeah. They're like, hey, Remus, so you know how you told me everything? So about this map. Awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, what's the biggest part that you think Lupin couldn't tell Dumbledore without talking about the map?
I guess... how Lupin knew what was going on. Like, because he sees the trio, Sirius and Pettigrew, being dragged, you know, to the Shrieking Shack and all that. And that's how he knows to, like, run after them and find them. And I feel like that's sort of by far the least suspicious way to explain how Lupin knew what was going on and where.
Unless you're just like, I literally saw this happen. I was walking in the grounds and I saw this.
He probably,
I think you'd have to, like, talk around being like, and then I saw the trio being dragged by Sirius Black, and I ran and I followed. But, like, it would be some pretty creative storytelling.
I think he might have done that, and also, like, it's not there were more important matters at that time than Dumbledore thinking, maybe Lupin didn't tell the whole truth here.
To be honest, like, when we're saying Lupin told Dumbledore everything, like, there was a lot to tell him. Like, it's possible that, you know, this story was not, like, exactly, like, told start to finish. It was like, oh yeah, and then this other part, and this other part. So it might not have been like, and then this happened, and then this happened. It's just like, these are the broad overviews of all of the things you need to know.
I feel like they had the time, and Dumbledore would very much want to know the details. So I think Lupin would have to deliberately obfuscate the map and the map's role in the story.
Yeah. But I agree with what you were saying of, like, in the spirit of the Marauders, like, not wanting to tell Dumbledore about it. I like the fact that, like, he gives it back to Harry and he's like, I'm no longer your teacher, so, like, I don't feel bad about giving this to you. And I feel like that's kind of the spirit in which he's, like, if he had told Dumbledore about it, it would also be sort of like, well, okay, now Dumbledore knows Harry has this, so it's like, not as much in the spirit of rule breaking and standing up to authority.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to let Harry kind of, like, have his time being a teenager.
But yeah, great question, Lizzie, honestly. Cause,
no, that's an amazing question.
It got me thinking. Yeah. I want to do a brief discussion of this because it's probably come up before. But we get this very inelegant quote that Barty Crouch Jr. says he turned the cup into a portkey at the end of his whole, like, evil plot. And I was like, that is not how things work. And that, I think that Barty Crouch Jr. was making some rhetorical shortcuts there. Because if he turned the cup into a portkey, like, what on earth? I think what actually happened is that, like, anyone can make a portkey out of Hogwarts, but I think only Dumbledore or the current headmaster can make portkeys into Hogwarts for security reasons. And I think Karoline and I probably discussed this on the safety and security episode. Mm-hmm. So I probably think how this played out is that Dumbledore turned the cup into a portkey to the Hogwarts grounds, and then Barty Crouch Jr. added an intermediate stop to the graveyard, which is how that all worked out. So
that seems the most feasible.
Right.
Yeah, and that also explains why Harry is coming back afterwards, because usually you don't touch a portkey and then, like, a second time and then just go back, right?
Right, exactly. Like, why would the portkey be programmed to take you to Hogwarts if, like, the idea was to get him to the graveyard?
Yeah, I never thought about that, but I fully buy that theory, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I think the other evidence to support that would be Barty Crouch Jr. manipulating the Goblet of Fire to add Harry to it. So obviously he's very good with jinxes and layering into existing spells in order to get them to function the way that he wants them to. And I don't know if we have ever really seen that so much, like, in the school classes. So that's very interesting. Maybe it's more advanced magic.
Right. I mean, I suppose that, like, futzing around with existing magic is probably much more complex than just, like, casting spells from scratch. So, yeah, I think that's another sort of point in the column of Barty Crouch Jr. is really impressive.
Yeah, no, he really is. Okay, this is connected sort of to the Veritaserum episode, like, about the potion, but I am going to give you some evidence for Barty Crouch Jr. taking a rhetorical shortcut in that, like, right after he finishes those, like, 3 sentences, it's like, the insane smile lit his features once more, and his head drooped onto his shoulder as Winky wailed and sobbed at his side. And
what a banger of a chapter ending. I just, sorry.
Yes. And I brought this up with Veritaserum in the Veritaserum episode before, but, like, what is it that's happening right here that causes his head to droop onto his shoulder? Like, is it, like, we don't know exactly, but, like, we were talking about, is it, you know, he has just been hit by, like, 3 powerful stunning spells and then revived. It might be that, like, the Veritaserum had made him be able to come back to consciousness, like, enough, but then the effects of that are hitting as the Veritaserum wears off. Maybe that's why his head is drooping. Maybe there are after effects of taking Veritaserum. But either way, it seems like he is at the end of his ability to keep talking. Like, it's not like Dumbledore is like, okay, we're done now, and then it's over. It's like he stopped. He stopped because he had to stop. So it seems like he might have been taking some shortcuts at the very end. Yes,
that's a very good point. I'll admit, I always thought of that as just dramatic license, you know, Joe Rowling, you know, telling the story with a bit of flair. But I like your theory. I love
flair, but why can't it be both?
I think it can, and it is both.
Yeah, I could see it as him just shutting down and going into shock.
So actually, Sophia, I wanted to ask you, now that you have a receptive audience for your theories, the schemes behind the spite. What is the Defense Against Dark Arts Jinx doing, and where and when in this chapter? I'd really like to hear your theories, sort of pinpointing what in this chapter is the work of the Defense Jinx. Because I have my theories, but I want to hear yours.
Okay. This is a great question. I will admit that, like, I am a little bit at the end of my full focus and brain, so we'll see how well I can do this. But actually, I want you to start out. How about you start out, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. So I took a narrower focus of the jinx than you did, where I think the jinx can only really impact the defense professor himself, or herself, and maybe magical objects. I don't think the jinx is powerful enough to, like, influence other people, because that would just make it way overpowered. So I actually, in the comments on your original essay, Ian Walker had a really, really good analysis that I mostly agree with. So I think that the only effect here is on Barty Crouch Jr. himself. I think the curse is, first of all, making him ignore the faux glass. Right? Because throughout his whole, like, you know, villain monologue, like, the figures in the faux glass are getting closer. And, like, you know, Barty Crouch Jr. is just, like, all in looking at Harry, not checking that. And I think it just sort of nudges Junior into not looking at the faux glass and into gloating a little more than he should have. Like, if Junior had spent, like, 30 seconds less gloating to Harry and, like, telling him how he did it all, he could have just killed Harry and, like, gotten it all done.
Yeah.
And sort of made his getaway before Dumbledore and company storm in. So I think that the curse's only effect is to be like, hey, Barty Crouch Jr., yeah, keep talking. Like, aren't you enjoying finally getting this off your chest? Which is what allows Dumbledore to take him out when he arrives in the nick of time.
Yeah.
And I would say that, like, the Dementors kissing him and all of that, I would say that is not the effects of the defense jinx.
Yeah. So I think that that fits with sort of how I see the curse's general effect on people, is that often it kind of, like, it finds the points of weakness of your personality, or not necessarily weakness. That's negative, but, like, it finds, like, it pushes you in directions you might be more likely to already go in.
Yes.
So in that way, sort of pushes against those weaknesses. I think that makes sense. I think, to be honest, unlike some of the other DADA professors, I think Barty Crouch Jr. is one of the only ones where it's like, there didn't need to be a jinx. Like, he wasn't going to be professor after this year either way. Because
touche.
Like, for two reasons. First reason is, like, Moody was only planning to come for a year. Second reason is, this isn't Moody. So, like, Barty Crouch Jr., if all had gone according to plan, he would have scampered and gone off to Voldemort. Like, I don't think there was any reason to believe. I guess there's only one very small possibility, and that would be if everything had gone exactly according to Voldemort's plan, Harry had showed up dead and nobody knew that it was Mad-Eye, maybe Voldemort would be like, wow, this is great. Like, he managed to be Mad-Eye for the whole year. Like, let's have him keep at Hogwarts. Like, he'll be my spy. But by this point...
and he's so good at the job, too.
Exactly! He grades his papers so well. He just has to stop teaching how to resist the Imperious Curse to people I want to Imperious.
Yeah.
But I would say by this point in the story, obviously, things did not go according to plan. Barty Crouch Jr. is planning to kill Harry. He is not coming back to Hogwarts the next year. Like, that is not happening either way. But... so if we're just talking about... I
mean, honestly, if they're never going to allow a teacher back after they try to kill Harry, no wonder they can't hold down a professor in the job.
Good point.
True. But if we take things more from the... not just from the point of view of how does the curse work in, like, the most standard, like, it's trying to make sure that the professors don't come back the next year. And if we take it more through my broader theory that, if people are not familiar, basically, the curse not only gets rid of professors, but it gets rid of professors in a way that generally seems to further Voldemort's aims. And if you want to know more, we have that recommended reading. I'm planning to expand that into a longer, better article at some point. We also had an episode a little while back. But in that case, I would say the thing that the curse could be doing here that is furthering Voldemort's aims is actually, like, making sure that Barty Crouch Jr. cannot testify about what happened. And so that's where my argument comes of perhaps because the curse is, like, able to sort of influence people. Irvin is saying only the professor. I'm saying potentially other people as well. It's able to influence people to sort of push them in directions that they already maybe are inclined towards, but it might be the reason that Fudge insisted on bringing a Dementor into the grounds, and the reason that the Dementor immediately went and kissed Barty Crouch Jr. Is that, yeah, it's really furthers Voldemort's aims to have Barty Crouch Jr. not be able to testify about anything that happened.
All right.
I would go one step further. I think maybe it also... it's also helpful for Voldemort, not only that he can't testify, but also that he's not there anymore. Because I think he was very useful for him for this year. But the whole, like, closeness to him, and then, okay, maybe that's still testifying, but, like, being able to testify in front of fellow Death Eaters what was really happening, because then the whole Voldemort, how Voldemort is trying to make himself immortal would maybe have become a little bit more obvious.
I guess I just disagree with you guys that stopping Junior from testifying was of such paramount importance, because at this point, Barty Crouch Jr. has spilled all his guts to Dumbledore. So, like, the most important person already knows what's going on. The Ministry doesn't believe him anyway because they don't want to. You know, we see Fudge brush him aside. He's like, oh, he's a lunatic. Ignore him. And I think because Barty Crouch Jr. is so loyal and so formidable, I think it would actually serve Voldemort's aims better to run the risk of him testifying while having him still available to deploy. You know, Voldemort could break him out of Azkaban and could use him again. So, yeah, I think that's just where I differ from you guys on what actually would help Voldemort in this scenario.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the risk of him testifying is a lot bigger than you do, because I do think that, yes, Fudge doesn't want to believe it, but if he went on trial, Fudge is not the only person who would hear it.
But that's a very big if.
Fair. But also, I think that Fudge is, like, he makes a decision in that moment. Like, when Dumbledore is telling him all these things, he makes a decision in that moment. But I do genuinely believe this decision could have gone a different way. I think it's possible that if he had been in the room with Barty Crouch Jr., heard all of the details, then heard, like, everything that Harry said, heard everything that Winky said, that it would be enough evidence that he couldn't lie to himself anymore. And I think, like, there is the moment where he says to Dumbledore, like, he can't be back. Like, he just can't be. And, like, to me, like, there's, like, a plea in his voice. Like, to me, that shows, like, it's more that he really doesn't want him to be back and therefore doesn't want to hear the evidence. But if he had heard the evidence, I'm not convinced that he would have completely discounted it.
Touché. I guess we could point our listeners to our Cornelius Fudge episode.
True.
For a much, much more in-depth discussion of Fudge's actions here. Well, all right. I think with that, it is time for the 7 ingredients of today's special.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
As I mentioned in my Goblet of Sevens essay, there are 7 people in Moody's office in this chapter, sort of for all the excitement. There is, of course, Mad Barty Crouch Eyes. There is Harry, McGonagall, Snape, Dumbledore, Winky, and, even though he's not doing very much, the real Mad-Eye Moody. And so that's 7.
That's good.
As we wrap up, I just want to go on the record saying it is bizarre to read this chapter out of context. Like, as I was coming up with, like, notes to discuss, I kept being like, oh, and then we could discuss that. And I was like, oh, nope, that's the next chapter. That's the previous chapter. Like, the Goblet of Fire climax is so, like, go, 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 that just, like, it was very weird and honestly rewarding to just read, like, one chapter in isolation. But, like, what was it like for you guys?
I mean, I think we can take so much out of this chapter. And one of my favorite quotes is in that chapter. It's understanding it's the first step to acceptance, and only with acceptance can there be a recovery.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Because this is a quote that I think is so true, because I think only with truth can you, only with understanding why certain things happen, can you come to a certain peace in your life when something terrible has happened to you. But me talking about that means that I already have so many more thoughts, and probably Irvin has thoughts that could fill another 5 episodes. And I think that's what I wanted to say. I think this chapter is just full of so many things that we could discuss full length. So it is bizarre. There's so much to discuss, and you kind of so many connections to other chapters in there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's why I really love our model of, like, doing chapter episodes out of context, because, like, when you strip chapters away from, like, the larger context of what it's going on, you can really sort of zoom away from, like, the main story arc playing out and zoom in on all these, like, little things and character moments and connections, and, like, oh, I just love it. Mm-hmm. Sophia, Lizzie?
Yeah, I just think that it was brilliant.
Well, all right. We'll leave it with that.
Okay. And we have a sponsor for that chapter, of course. This chapter was sponsored by Hip Flasks for enjoying your favorite potion while letting people assume you just have a minor drinking problem. And with that, I want to thank our guest, Lizzie. Thank you for visiting the Three Broomsticks a second time.
At length.
And I'm sure we could have made it the third time, but we will refrain of doing so.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Yes. But I want to thank you for having so many great questions. It was really awesome thinking about all those things for a second time in a row. And usually I would ask you where to follow you and if you have anything to plug, but you did tell us last week that we can't really follow you anywhere online. Do you have anything you want to plug?
I do want to say thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun to chat with you guys. Hopefully you'll give me an invite back sometime.
Oh, count on it. Anyone who can make it through one of our 2-parters, we're going to invite back.
Awesome. I look forward to it. I just wanted to plug to anyone out there listening who's like me, who just kind of lurks in the background and follows along, like, separately, privately, and doesn't really get engaged. Definitely put yourself out there. This was a goal for myself to do this year, to kind of just put myself out there a little bit more with things that I'm comfortable with. And it was a lot of fun. So, like, just jump in and take that step, get active in the comment section, get active in other ways, and put your voice out there too, because you might be surprised about what your experience ends up being.
Aw, great advice.
Hell yeah.
That's really great. Thank you. And listeners, listen to Lizzie.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Well, if you enjoyed your time at the pub today, please rate and review us online or tell your friends about our show. And huge thank you again to Ryan Post, who bought us this round of drinks at the Three Broomsticks. If you'd like to buy us the next round, head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks with the numeral 3 to sign up.
And want to find us online, we are on various different social media channels, which are linked on our website and in the show notes. And of course, on the website, we have the votes for last episode on episode 86, looking at who gives the best villain speech. And with this episode, please visit our website and vote on who is more obsessed with Lord Voldemort, Crouch or Bellatrix.
Oh, I hope Barty can win at least one of these polls. It'll be sad if he goes 0 for 2.
Well, keep voting, and then we'll mention that in another episode and see who has won there. And of course, we also share our upcoming Patreon schedule on social media. 1 week ago, Evan Tavi discussed Hagrid's questionable taste in pets. And unsurprisingly, it's all Dumbledore's fault again. So find Irvin in the comments there.
Hold my earrings.
And then if you don't know our website, it's 3broomstickspod.com with the 3 spelled out. Submit a topic, vote in our polls. We have so many polls now, and let us know your thoughts.
Yes, and next time we meet at the Three Broomsticks, we're going to be discussing Goblet of Fire, Chapter 35, Veritaserum for
Stop it.
Oh, okay, fine. All right, the next time we meet at the Three Broomsticks, we will be discussing Felix Felicis, the potion, not the chapter, as part of our potions season here at the Three Broomsticks. And with that, it has been such a delight. I've been Irvin.
I'm Sophia.
And I'm Karoline. Thank you for listening. See you next time in the Three Broomsticks.
Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butterbeer.
All right, you guys, that was so good.
And it's not even midnight.
Yay!
Okay, I will stop my recording.
This episode of The Three Broomsticks was edited by Patrick Musilek. The theme song was written and performed by the Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
Did any of you listen to the Ev and me reading fan fiction thing?
I have not.
No, not yet.
Because we're having so much fun over there. It's a shame that it's on Patreon. I'm not trying to push you to listen to it, but we just we're trying to meet every Monday and to record whenever we can because we want to know how it continues the story. So didn't expect that.
I love that,
and it's really cool.